Hello all, I am Ramakrishna Kovuri. So I have a 12 plus years experience as the AWS solution architect and AWS security architect. So today I am going to explain in AWS microservice based architecture, like it's a real-time architecture. Okay, let me share my screen. So these are my certifications. Okay, so I'm going to explain this AWS architecture. So this I have prepared in my work, and this is the microservice based architecture. So here is AWS reason I took. I have AWS account. I logged in AWS account, and I took as a London reason. And this is my reason. And I have in VPC. That VPC I have custom VPC. Inside I am managing two availability zones, because why we are managing two availability zones, because of high availability of the application. So availability zone 1 and zone 2. And when it comes in starting, so I'm keeping as the AWS Cloudflare. It's a AWS Cloudflare is a not a AWS one. It's in outside one, because of security, layer 7 security purpose. I'm keeping as a AWS Cloudflare. So this Cloudflare will do in a layer 7 security, and we have a, like what kind of things will do. So like a content delivery network, website security. Means website security means DDoS attacks, SQL injections, cross-site scripting, those things will do, and protection of the DDoS, and SSL and TLS encryption, so like HTTPS security, load balancing, and DNS management, serverless computing. This will do by in Cloudflare. So because of that security purpose, I need for more security, so that I have used in AWS. This is a Cloudflare. This is not AWS. So once it's this is my AWS Route 53. It's a DNS, like CNAME records routing rules will be done in this AWS Route 53. So this DNS, it will be, it's this one security SSL certificate is encrypted. So this is the AWS certificates manager I have attached. Means it's all the requests will come in HTTPS. It means 443. Okay, so Cloudflare, I will configure this DNS in Cloudflare. Once it's a configured in DNS in Cloudflare, it will send the request to in my CloudFront. So you can have a doubt in why you are using this. So again, is a Cloudflare also same thing will do, and CloudFront also will do, because whatever the request I have coming from is a Cloudflare, those requests only will accept in my CloudFront. So that is the reason I am managing is the AWS CloudFront. So you know this AWS CloudFront will manage the content delivery network, and caching mechanism, those things will do. And is a certificate for in my DNS. And here I am writing for in web rules, firewall rules I'm writing. Web application firewall rules I'm writing. Why I need to write in? If it is any untrusted incoming, this IPC is coming, those I can block it based on this web rules. Okay. And when you go to in static website, the static website is my content is CDN will keep it here like a CloudFront, and all the static files I will keep in S3 bucket, like JSON, .html, like JS files, all static files related things I will keep. Like this is like Angular code. So Angular code I will keep in here. So whenever the browser comes, the static website will be available. So when it's come to business logic, so there is two types of request. One is like static one, and other one is a business dynamic request. When you come to dynamic request, it will go to I'm managing all this in API gateways. So API gateways, so this all the methods will write to get to, put to, post to, delete to, this based on that whatever I want, those methods I will put it. So here is I'm writing some coding here in lambdas. Some rules are writing, routing rules, those things. That's why I'm using for AWS Lambda. And AWS Cognito I'm using because some this application I want to log in from in other people also. I am allowing to log into this application so that they do not have an account. So I'm taking from their Gmail and Twitter, like kind of Facebook IDs. I'm trusting them and I'm logging here. I'm allowing them. So that is the purpose I'm using AWS Cognito. And here, so I'm sending my request to, I have in my EKS cluster here. So that EKS cluster we have in between I'm managing private link. Why I'm managing private link? Because some people, they know that the API call, I face the some kind of issue. API URL, they know, and they are directly hitting instead of coming from it via Cloudflare, they are coming from an API gateway. That is the reason I am in blocking them. For that, I am using that in a private link. When you use the private link, it will not pass in via internet, and it will be, we can save the time and it is more secure. So that's the reason I am using AWS for private link. Again, here is my EKS cluster is there. So one cluster we are using, and inside we have its worker nodes. So there is a two kind of worker nodes we can use it. One is the EC2 we can use, other one is Fargate we can use. In is the EC2 means it's like we need to manage, that is servers based, and Fargate means that is it will not be a server. Each pod it will create one Fargate. So it will be Fargate will be more cost. So I go for an EC2 instance. So once it's the heat instance, here is a way I'm using ingress load balancer. So I gave in AWS ALB application load balancer. That is called of we already in Kubernetes itself, we can choose and we can create the load balancers. So these are the ingress load balancer. This is my EKS cluster. Only is one cluster. I have in I selected some multiple reasons. Two reasons I selected, and I am creating these are the my EC2 nodes. So this is a worker nodes. Okay. And inside the worker nodes, you can create your pods, so microservices. If you want a front end, back end, database, whatever microservice you want, those you can create. So this is a microservice part, and there is some security we are using, security groups, all those things. And here again, this I'm using for in Aurora database. When it's come to Aurora database, I choose from two ways. One is to look for in a DNS lookup. Other one will use for in AWS access, this one database user ID password, via password we can connect it. URL like those three items and port number, via that we can connect it. And this is my database I'm using for multi-reason, because if production, when it's a production, one reason is down also, other reason will be available. That's why I'm using this Aurora database and multi-reason. Sorry, multi-availability zone, not multi-reason, multi-availability zones. Okay, and I'm using for an elastic cache because my database, I don't want to load more. So I'm managing the cache. How it is work cache? For example, I have logged in once. So same data, it will make it in cache, Redis cache we are using, it make the cache. When you want to log in from again, it will directly, it will cache itself, it will go and give the access. So it will get your response from cache only. So that is the reason we are using in Elastic Cache. And MQ, AWS MQ, we are using the messages queue, sending the messages from one system to other system. That is the purpose I am using for in messages. So in here, this VPC, I need to mention one more thing. So I follow this VPC, creating the AWS well architect rules we have. Okay, those rules I will follow. So I have given some explanation here. So for example, I have is a custom VPC. When is a custom VPC is there, so how do you want to create your public subnets and private subnets? So some people they will ask that why we need for public subnet. In future, you want to have in some IPs, you want to keep it in. For those purpose, we are using for in public subnets. So one subnet for in public, one subnet for availability zone 1, and one public subnet for in availability zone 2. Two public subnets we are using, and two private subnets. So these two private subnets, I'm making that names also. Yeah, private subnet A1A, yeah, application private subnet 1B. Like either you can use the EKS or EC2 or anything you can use it. So one zone is the 1A, one subnet, other zone is other subnet. So for database also, I'm managing different subnets. So one zone is I will make it as one subnet, and other zone is one another subnet. So when it comes, this is the well architecture. As per in well architecture rules, it's following this. So if it is, if you're not using also public subnet, you can keep it. For example, tomorrow you want for in you want for in to create something you want to connect in public subnet, you will not get IPs, and again you need to split here. Entire architecture, this VPC network itself, you need to change it. That we don't want to change it. That's why we are using these things. Okay, so you know that what is the public subnet, what is the private subnet. Public subnet means it's come from internet gateway. Private subnet, it will come from a NAT gateway. Okay, so let me go to here is we completed till here. So what is I have in another applications I am connecting, so that there is a two ways you can connect it. One is like VPC peering, another one is a transit gateway peering. So recently is the new one is the transit gateway peering, because VPC peering it's done by one to one. The transit gateway peering you have in number more than 10, 10 application, 13 application like that. So if you do that transit gateway peering, it will very easy. It will take more VPCs you can connect it. So that's the reason we are using the transit gateway peering. And for monitoring, we are using for Dynatrace. This another I have a custom VPC. For that also I am connecting in using the transit gateway peering. And for in once, for example, that I have I have created my Docker image. I build my Docker image via CI/CD pipeline. I moved in ECR repository, but there is some vulnerability security purpose. Once I created this image via transit gateway, I'm moving to in JFrog. So JFrog will be using for in your all the your image scan will do your image scan and your secrets, your how you are managing secrets. Those all the things will do. So for that we are using for it no JFrog. So this is the basically will all the threats, all the vulnerabilities will identify the JFrog. After once is the no availability, all the things are fixed, then we can make the version. Based on the version, we can move it in production. So this is the JFrog. So I am in between. There is many services we need to use like IAM. We need to use that AWS CloudWatch for its application logs monitoring, and we need to use for in AWS CloudTrail for in user activity in application. The services what is doing those governance purpose we are using, and there is the AWS Inspector. When it's come to AWS Inspector, that I have in here is a EC2 instances. I want to scan the OS. If it is any find out the only any vulnerabilities, for that we'll use for in AWS Inspector. So AWS CloudWatch, when you use the CloudWatch, right? So application logs will be, it will create that CloudWatch log group, and it will be moved in CloudWatch. We can see that logs, but basically these logs will be created backend in S3 bucket. And AWS KMS, there is a key management service. Okay, there is a two asynchronous custom managed key and customer managed key and AWS managed keys are there. So when it's a customer managed key, you will give the key and we can upload from an AWS KMS. If it is a AWS managed key, we can directly create from AWS itself. So why we are using the KMS? Because KMS will do. So you have in your application, you are in a starting point, you done in SSL and TLS certification. But after this data processing from your application layer to your till database and get from there, so we need to encrypt the data. Entire data we want to encrypt. For that, we'll use for an AWS KMS, key management service. So for storing the large files in small files, for that we'll use for an AWS S3 bucket. AWS DynamoDB. I want to create some sessions. So for example, I have a requirement. So one customer is, for example, I am doing some operations. When is 100 members, some caching management and something is, I want to manage the sessions. So this is a non-SQL database. For that, we'll use for DynamoDB. So you can use instead of SQL, you can use DynamoDB also. But here is we are managing something not exactly in all the database, and we are using for some sessions managing purpose. We are using for in DynamoDB. And AWS Lambda, I have writing some codes or routing rules. Either is Java, either is Python, either is the .NET. Those purpose I'm using for AWS Lambda. You know that this is the EC2 opposite is AWS Lambda. It's EC2 means we need to manage the server. It is a Lambda means this is serverless. We no need to manage. Okay, it's auto scaling and it will be maximum is 15 minutes only one per session will work. This is called as the AWS Lambda. This is the AWS Certificate Manager. This is like SSL certificate, SSL and a TLS certificate. That is a 440. It will be installed in DNS level itself. That is called as the AWS Certificate Manager. Next is the Secrets Manager. For example, in Kubernetes pod, so I need to manage some secrets like any passwords, authentication related, and tokens. Those things I don't want to keep in pod level itself. In Kubernetes, there is two option. One, we can keep it in secrets manager and refer this ARN to this pod, that code itself. Otherwise, here is a pod itself. We can create that Kubernetes secrets. So I don't want to create in Kubernetes secrets. That's why I'm keeping in secrets manager in AWS itself, AWS secret manager service. So and I'm calling to here is my pod like a code and again is this code build, code commit, code deploy. So this all is like DevOps part. Okay, so whenever is my development is completed, I will code will move in one repository code commit, and again is will build it. It's using for in code build, and will move it into code deploy. So for that we'll use in code these three services. Means this is the CI/CD pipeline process, and once the pipeline is built, Docker image built, we pushed in ECR repository. So now is the guard duty. So for example, so I'm getting the lot of IPs. I want to monitor those IPs, suspicious IPs I want to identify. For that, we'll use for in guard duty. So guard duty we need to enable in the particular region. For example, I'm using London region. London region itself, we have to enable it. So AWS Cognito already explained is I without AWS account here, they want users want to log in from using that Gmail or Facebook or Twitter something, so that they will allow from here itself. That we use for in AWS Cognito. So this is about the AWS architecture. Please subscribe and like and support me so for more videos. Thank you.